Please join me in welcoming Brigadier General Amir Nachumi, interviewed by Major David Schur.
Folks, I need a waiver here. Although I'm practicing English for the last, 65 years, I still think in Hebrew. And in order to articulate my thought here, I need to translate online the Hebrew to English. And it is kind of difficult because Hebrew is from right to left and English is from left to right. And I can maybe give you an example, an episode that I had when I flew AH-1 Cobra helicopter as part of my job. Night close formation. Now you imagine that a fighter pilot, when you want to add power, he goes like this. When you want to in a helicopter, you want to add power, you go like this. So imagine how is it to keep up formation at night when all the time you have to think forward, backward, forward, backward. So this is about translation from Hebrew to English. I also reckon that your folks want to hear the story, dull story of the raid on the nuclear reactor. So why don't we just follow George Lucas and start with episode 4? And then, if you can buy us some more time, then we can roll back to episode 1, 2, and 3. How about that?
Sounds good, sir.
Sure?
Absolutely. I'm
You
always
are sure?
I'm very, very, very sure. Sir, if you don't mind, to start, how about we go to November 1980? Can you explain what was going on at that point?
Yeah. Why don't we go back 5,000 years ago and we start... And we have a look at the neighborhood that we are living. I think the best way to describe it, that if I was an American boy, I would tell you, I'm from Brooklyn. No, it's not my fault. Okay, somewhere here, there is a mountain with olive trees. When Abraham, the father of both the Jews and the Arabs, was called by God to sacrifice his son to show his devotion to God. And luckily for him, he did it. He went up there, took his son, put him on a stone, took the knife, and wanted to slaughter his son for God. And then God said, hold it. You prove your point. Here's the goat. Put the goat inside. And he put the goat. And from that time, all of the world, maybe except China, wants this mountain. It started with the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, Roman. After the Romans, when they turned into Christianity, came Muhammad from Mecca. And after him, the Crusaders came. And after the Crusaders, the Turk Ottoman Empire came there. And after them, UK, Great Britain, and France came there. And only in 1948, when the United Nations decided of some kind of separate this small land, by the way, from here to here, 500 kilometers. From here to here, 80 kilometers. From here, Tel Aviv, to the border, 8 kilometers. So, can you imagine the neighborhood? By the way, we call ourselves always an aircraft carrier because we have so many airplanes, and this looks like an aircraft carrier. So if we jump to 1921, the British, like they did in several places in the world, they make arrangement there. They put up the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, the Hashemite kingdom of Iraq. They set up the King Faisal in Saudi Arabia, and in Palestine, which was the name of Israel today, they put the High Commissioner. In 1963, and there's in Iraq a nuclear program started. And because basically Bakr was the president of Iraq, but Saddam Hussein was the man behind the throne, and he did everything. So what we were seeing along this time, basically until 1978, that Saddam planned to build an atomic program for weapon grade under the coverage of Atom for Peace. And 10 years later, when I was invited here, when this was recognized, I asked the people who was invited there, Iraq, atomic weapon for peace, they are drowning in oil. Give me a break. So it went on, and but just jumping because we don't have too much time for that. People who want to make research on this can get these slides and make some if they want to make a research. And I would want to jump to October 1980. At this month, Israeli government has two critical meetings, where all, as you see in the video, that all the diplomatic efforts, all the covert operation that the Mossad didn't help. The program went on, and Menachem Begin said in this government meeting that there is a clock above our head and it's ticking. And he meant that, according to the information that he has, that in September of 1981, the nuclear reactor will become hot. It means that they will put in the uranium. And that means that if we will attack it there, it will be a second Chernobyl. And nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to do that because the only goal of this military action is to stop the program, not to make collateral damage. So it set a deadline for the time of the attack. And another thing that he wanted is that the government will vote unanimously for the raid. He didn't want in the government or ministers that would say abstain or against. He said, I want everybody think it over and unanimously vote on it. The Minister of Defense, the late Ezra Watzman, was opposing and he resigned. He was opposing for that because he was afraid that our important peace with Egypt will be broken because of that. So this was his view, and he was opposing, and he resigned. At that point, I was 1 month after I returned from Hill Air Force Base. It's also a very short story because our country, Israel, was scheduled to get the F-16s, A's, sometimes in 1984. However, and the first country outside of US and outside Europe was Iran. Iran has a package of 75 F-16s scheduled to be delivered in 1980, and they were manufacturing them back in Dallas-Fort Worth. And but in 1979, as you remember, the Khomeini revolution took place, and the Shah of Iran, which was friend of the West, actually had to leave the country. And at that point, the US government decided to embargo Iran, and all the planes started piling in the backyard of Dallas-Fort Worth. So one came with a good idea to ask the US government, why don't we take the Iranian airplanes? Look how history is funny. Let's take the Iranian airplanes first. So it was agreed, and because of that, it was really hushed back here to US with 12 pilots, which was picked from the other pilots' squadrons, and I was chosen to be a squadron commander of one of the 2 squadrons that are in the base 1 in the north of the country, and we came here for checkup on the airplane. We flew 23 missions. We also flew 2 missions in the backseat to learn how to land from the backseat in order to be able to be the trainer to instructor in Israel, and we came back to Israel. November, we were called to the commander of the Air Force, myself and the other squadron commander. He told us that he wanted us to concentrate on air to ground. And he said, why? And he said, I don't want you to start dissimilars with F-15. It's too dangerous. And probably he had a phone call from one of our pilots who was here. He called his friend in F-15 squadron in Israel. He told him, clean up the pylons. Because he was an F-15 pilot and he flew the F-16. He told them they have to clean the pilot from the airplane if they want to fight. And they were afraid of this hot between the 2 squadrons, and then he said, you go to train air to ground. But this was not the reason, because 1 month after that they called us, and there was a big map on the wall with all the headquarters, and there was a circle there, and they said, here is a nuclear reactor. Okay, we look at the range, 600 miles, straight line. And we think that the F-16 that we bought can do it without refueling. Okay, we went back to the squadrons, we start training. We start making long range missions. But how can you fly 600 miles on a country which is 300 miles long, and all of it is occupied, inhabited, and you cannot fly over inhabited area. So the only place we could fly is here in the Negev desert, which is kind of 100 miles. So what we did, we started flying from our base here in the north. We flew back over the Red Sea here, because Sinai at that time was, half Sinai was still in the hand of Israel. It is only on the process of the peace of Egypt. So we flew down here, we flew back here, we flew back here, we bombed here, and then we started flying back and forth until we reached the full range. And also, it had to be in a very high secrecy, because secrecy is all about it. If they will find that they come, then hell will come from the other side. If we can surprise them, we can handle the heavy air defense that was there. There was there 1 brigade of SA-2, 1 brigade of SA-3, 1 brigade of SA-6, 200 shoulder-mounted SAMs and about 120 23 quad anti-aircraft. I don't know what the name of this ZSU-23. Yeah, that is the name. And it was heavily defended. So the only way to penetrate that without any EW, because we didn't have weasels, and we didn't have any EW on the airplane. They were just clean Iranian airplane without anything, no chaff, no flares, nothing. And so the only chance to penetrate this is to come really on the deck, smoking on the ground, and just make a real pop-up and bomb it and egress. So we start training on that. And then we found the problem. The airplane still didn't have any release envelope. Nobody released from the airplane 2,000 Mark 84 bombs. The American program at that point didn't do it. They didn't jettison the tanks in the presence of bombs. And we didn't know what happened because the tanks goes like this, they can hit the stabilizer. So we started the program, a very crash program, with one very brave pilot that took the job to close his eyes and jettison the tanks, see what happened. And we started the program for the release, for what we planned to do, because our job was, in the reactor, the target was not on the surface of the reactor, but 40 meters down to the core of the reactor. This is what we had to destroy, because there is the heart of the reactor. All the rest is infrastructure, dome, and things like this. And in order to reach the bombs down there, the bomb has to penetrate 40 meters in the ground, and the trajectory of the bomb is something like this. So we have to calculate this, what is the delay of the fuse that we have to use, because we were using simple Mark 84 with the delay fuse. 2 on the airplane, we have 2 M9L, 2 Mark 84 bombs, and 3 tanks. This was the configuration. I know that there are many stories that there were guided bombs and other things, and that we just hide behind the El Al, some kind of a civilian tracks with it is all lies. We just flew very low from here, because we were deployed here. This is an air base near Eilat. We just flew. This is about what we did. And then we came back same way. Here, we climbed to 40,000 and negotiated the headwinds of the whole world, 100 knots of headwind. And it took forever because the sun is going down and we are chasing the sun, and then it became dark. But nevertheless, we planned this and we trained. But in January of 1981, my XO got killed in a mid-air collision in an air-to-air. We used to make a dissimilar between F-16 and F-4s 2 to 3, because the 2 to 2 doesn't match. So we did it 2 to 3, and without any rules. It means that they can do whatever they want to do, and we can do. And in one of these, there was a mid-air collision between a Phantom and an F-16. The Phantom just blew the F-16 to pieces. And they both ejected. The navigator got killed. The pilot saved of the F-4, but the pilot of the F-16 was killed. It was my XO. And that was a really heavy. We continued to train. And then there was a decision that the raid will be taken on May 10 of May. So we deployed down here to this base, from our base, and it also we decided to be taken on Sunday. Sunday is a day where the French technician didn't work on the reactor. We didn't want to kill for no reason, French people in the reactor. So Sunday was the day. And we also decided to attack on 1 hour before dark. Why? Because we estimated that at least two pilots will have to eject there. If they survive the heat, they will have to eject. And the helicopters which were even hovering here, fly to here, the CH-53 takes 5.5 hours to get there. And the pilot who bail out has to survive 5.5 hours there. So we decided it's better to do it at night. So, but we cannot commence a night attack. We don't have any means. We have to have an eye visual of the target. We did simple CCIP. And CCIP in F-16A is pretty accurate, between 1 to 3 meter CEP. And that was enough to hit the reactor. And so we decided on 5:35 will be the time on target. And that was the deal on May 10. So May 10 is Sunday. On Friday, we deployed. I told my wife, which is sitting here with us, that we are going to some secret mission in the Red Sea. Nothing to worry about. Don't worry. And we had to spend almost 2.5 days there. So what do you do 2.5 days in a base? Nobody knew. They put some barbed wires around the squadron that we were there. All the base was secluded from us, and we were secluded from the base, and we had to stay there for 2.5 days. And this was terrible, because the number of jokes that I heard that was enormous jokes, and all of them are what you call black jokes. So we started to play basketball. So we play basketball between the two squadrons. My squadron's all the height of me, the other squadrons are all tall, and we lost every game. And then on Sunday morning of the May 10th, came a Beechcraft with the whole brass, commander of the Air Force, commander of the Army. They came there, and one of the intelligence officers brought a suitcase. Then when he get back from when he disembarked from the Beechcraft, the suitcase opened, and a whole bunch of 25 Iraqi pounds was spread over the runway. So he didn't know until then where we going. And when he saw Bank of Iraq, then he calculated, they are going to Iraq. And they brought this money, and they gave us the money and said, okay, in case you have to do something after you jump, maybe you take a taxi or maybe you pay someone. Here are 25 Iraqi, it's a lot of money. It's like 25 pounds, I think, British pounds. So we got this money, and we had a brief. We went to the airplanes, we cranked the engine, and we started, and then my technical officer came and said, I said, what happened? Why? He said, abort. So and you know what it is? After you're ready, we aborted the airplane, we came back to the squadron, we were told that, okay, Begin decided to abort. Okay? What do we do now? 100 people already in the Air Force know about it. Secrecy is not an issue anymore, because controllers, all the E2C people, the helicopter crews, all knew about it now, and it was aborted. So this was a disaster. And we also had to wait until we come back, until night. So at night we took the airplane, we flew back to our base, and we didn't know what was happening. After that, we learned that at the same day, Menachem Begin met with President Sadat in Sharm el-Sheikh. And Begin didn't want to embarrass Sadat, because if we attack on the same day, the whole Arab world would think that Sadat was part of the conspiracy. And he didn't want to involve him. So he decided to delay. And then all of a sudden, after 5 days, I think, commander of the Air Force was on some celebration of the Sixth Fleet, which is in the Mediterranean. It was in Italy. And he went to Italy to meet his friends from the Sixth Fleet. And on the way back, he called us in the squadron and told, we are doing it, day after tomorrow. So I had to go back. I told my wife, we're going back there to the Red Sea. But this time we didn't go on Friday because it was too tight. This time we went on Sunday morning. But it was a holiday in Israel. Nobody flew, so we were the only one who flew this time. So we took off at about 5 o'clock in the morning. We sneaked along the sea, and then along the, from here we sneaked along the sea, here we sneaked here along the border, and we landed at low altitude there. Radio silence, and we bring the airplane. They loaded the bombs. We went into a briefing. At the meantime, at the same week, the son of the head of the chief of the army of Israel, he was a pilot. He got killed in this base in an air accident. He flew in Kfir, and he lost control. He departed, and he tried to get the airplane out, but he didn't, and he crashed, and he killed. And his father, chief of the army, came in the middle of the morning, his morning, and there was a brief. At that brief, I first realized what is the weight of this mission. Until then, well, I took it as, okay, it's a special mission, it's far away, it's a new airplane, first airplane that there is no connection between the stick and this stabilizer or ailerons. It's only wires. It is the first time we flew this airplane. One engine. We was thinking, what happened if the engine failed on us? And all this was things that a little bit, concerned. But until then, until the chief of the army said, and he said this word, that if we fail, there's only one chance. We cannot do it again. Politically, historically, we can only do it once. And if we fail, there is a chance of the annihilation of Israel. So I said, what? The whole nation is on our 8 pilots' shoulders. This was the first time I felt that this is not a real mission, that this is something that cannot be failed. And we stopped thinking about how to go back, how to come back. It didn't mean anything anymore. The only thing that we're thinking, how we can penetrate this air defense and drop the bomb successfully. So all of a sudden, it was very quiet in the briefing, heavy atmosphere. So chief of the army saw it, and so he called his aide and said, bring me the box. So he brought him a box of dates. And he said, guys, here's the date. Take them because you have to get used. There are a lot of dates in Iraq. You're laughing. Nobody laughed. It was a silence until somebody, burst in a late ignition, what we called, and started laughing. And then was another issue. All of a sudden, there was a we're not sure what is the real time in Baghdad. And they start discussing it because we wanted to get in Baghdad 1 hour before sunset. And nobody could tell at that briefing, even to the chief, what is the time difference between Israel and Baghdad. Because we set the takeoff time in order to attack on 3 p.m. Israel time, which is 5 p.m. Baghdad time, 5:35. So I looked around, I saw a Mossad guys there. I said, yeah, pick up the phone, call Europe, tell his agent to call Baghdad, ask him what is the time. And at the same time, ask him what is the weather. Because we were concerned that there would be clouds there. So he said, well, that's not a bad idea. So after 15 minutes, we got confirmation that we have in Iraq, we have 2 hours difference. And so everything was set. Okay. So another thing was that, you know,